Hey everybody, welcome back to yet another Edgecom webinar or live stream, not webinar. However, with that being said, while we have people rolling in here, we are doing a webinar January 31st at 2 p.m. And that's going to be on the Ontario peaks to help with global adjustment costs for the ICI program. Again, that's 2 p.m. January 31st. And again, we're going to be talking about what the peaks are, how to handle them, the cost of inaction, and the potential savings when you're addressing these peaks effectively. So you are not going to want to miss that webinar if you are running a facility within Ontario. It's important to know the information that's out there, even if you don't have any plans to participate. So again, that's January 31st, 2 p.m. But the topic of today actually is more going into our hardware. Many of you are familiar with our data track solution, and again, measuring so that you can effectively manage. But what a lot of people don't know is how we kind of came to have our hardware the way it is. We advertise it as plug and play, but what does that mean, right? So I think it's important to get into the history of metering within the manufacturing world itself. Historically, metering has been ideal. Everybody wants to know exactly what they're consuming, how much, whether their machine is healthy or not. But the fact of the matter is, up until recently, it's been incredibly expensive, invasive, and a threat to your security. So traditionally, you would get a meter and you would need to hardwire it into a machine. So that would require not only the cost of shutting a machine down or a facility and getting it set up so that there's no safety issues for the electrician, but you would also need to actually feed a runway of wire back to the panel or somewhere where it can get a constant feed of electricity. So that was issue number one. It takes time to shut the machines down. You need to pay for all that extra wiring. And again, it's hardwired. Once it's there, it needs to stay on that machine. It's not convenient if that machine stops working or the meter stops working. You basically just have an expensive pile of junk. And again, it comes at a high cost. Another issue, again, with it being hardwired is historically, it needs to be able to send the data somewhere. How does it do that? Either LAN cabling or Wi-Fi. Both of those involve using an internal network to send and receive that data. Now, every time you're using an internal network that, say, your accounting team is processing invoices on, or payments, or your product team is handling sensitive data, you're now introducing a security risk with this old school style of metering. It's an extra point of entry into your network. So when Edgecom decided that we were revolutionizing how metering will happen in the industry, that was one of our largest core focuses, was how can we reduce the cost? How can we make it more accessible, easy to install? And how can we lower the potential threat of any security? So what I'm going to be showing you guys today is exactly what we made to address those three concerns. So starting off with the core of it all is actually our hub. This is the center, the brain power of all of our metering operations. So this is responsible for sending and receiving data, not only from your facility, but to our cloud, and it does it completely securely on its own network. So the hub specifically, again, it's the brains of the operation. We use LTE signal to transmit the data on its own private network from your facility to the cloud. So right away, we've eliminated the first issue of a security threat. There's no way that they can tap into any sensitive data on the facility side because we are using an LTE private connection internally through this device. And this device will only speak with the devices you have set up in your facility, and it will only speak with Edgecom's cloud. Even if you get another device without it properly provisioning, it won't even speak to another meter. It'll only speak to what it has permission to speak to. And again, even in the event you were able to bypass that, the secure nature of an LTE private connection means that it's not going anywhere. The data isn't going to leave. So that's our hub. And again, not only is it the part of security, however, it also keeps everything wireless. The hub is the brain. It is what allows the machines to speak its data wirelessly. Now, the hub can't do that on its own. We do need other sensors. And we do have a few sensors that are important for that transfer of data. So first off, we can start at the main level. Now, just a quick side story. Edgecom, as many know, got its start doing the Ontario peak predictions. And much like what I talked about with historic metering, we had an old, ugly meter that we would put in for customers, and it was all hardwired and it would help them transfer the data. We still used LTE connection to get it out of the facility wirelessly, but within it was still kind of a pain to set up. So the first thing we invested in is a wireless pulse counter. So this device basically would go right next to a main utility meter. There is an output called KYZ. You would just plug the KYZ in right into port 3 and 4 here. And within 15 minutes of this being set up, this is using LoRa protocol to transfer the data to this hub. So again, within a kilometer away, this device here can connect to any of your 3 main utility meters using that KYZ protocol, and it will transfer the data wirelessly to this hub. And then from there, the hub is going to send it to the cloud. And these devices are so inexpensive. It is pennies on the dollar compared to the historic cost of metering. So now, using the hub and using this pulse counter, we've already addressed the concerns. There's no threat of security. It's inexpensive. And it's wireless. There's little effort that goes into it. It's 2 cables to connect this pulse counter. It is 2 cables. You poke them through and it's done. Within 15 minutes, you're getting data. Now, that's all fine and dandy for the main level. So you have a wireless secure connection. You have your main water, your main gas, and your main electricity feed all coming in nicely on the portal. But let's say you have a shaker or a boiler or just any downstream device that you want to connect. Again, much like the pulse counter, we have a CT meter, right? Or we also have, and we have these in 75 amp, 250 amp, and 630 amp. And this is magnetic, so it's as simple as going up next to the machine, slapping it on, and then again, it's just a regular CT. Just clip, 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 on. Within 15 minutes, that data is flowing. And again, it is super inexpensive to set up. Within 15 minutes, the data is automatically flowing to the hub, and the hub sends it to the cloud, all secure on our private LTE network. And then within 15 minutes, you're seeing that data live on the portal. So historically as well, it's hard to see data at a decent interval. If you think about your main utility, even at home, right? It takes anywhere from a day to 30 days, depending on your utility, to actually have that data feed through for you to review. And if you're acting after the fact, then you can only operate in hindsight. And if you're operating in hindsight, really, what good is any measure you take? So having live data through these devices actually helps you make active, proactive decisions and lower your energy costs. Now, there is one final device that Edgecom has to help many, many, many customers, because they come to me and they say, well, Chris, this is great. It's cool that your meters are inexpensive. It's nice that it's wireless and secure and easy to install. But Chris, I already bought these meters 8 years ago. They're old. We don't really use them because it takes so much work to go and check on them manually. So I can't afford to put another meter on here, but we have these ones I don't use. Well, we heard that loud and clear. And we have Modbus converters that can actually integrate with existing meters on the platform. This basically makes them wireless. It takes that same data, lets it communicate to the hub, and sends it to the cloud. So whether that's an existing meter or an existing asset that has Modbus connection, or in extreme circumstances, we can use APIs and databases to not only pull, but also push data from the portal on our private network. So again, the last device here, if you say, hey, Chris, I already have metering set up. I just don't have it wirelessly. I don't have it as frequently as I'd like. I would like to have this data on your portal. However, I don't need new hardware. Then this is the case. And this is one of the core components as to why we're hardware agnostic. So at the end of the day, we do provide very secure, very cheap, not cheap, inexpensive devices. We can also integrate with existing meters. So with that being said, that is our core sleuth of devices. Is there any questions about the capabilities or anything at all? While I'm waiting for questions to pour in here, I will like to remind you all we have a newsletter, edgecom.ai/newsletter. You can sign up there, receive semi frequent updates about what's happening in the industry, the manufacturing industry, what's happening with AI improvements, policy changes, etc. All of that you'll get in that newsletter. It's to keep you informed, keep us informed, and spread the wealth of knowledge. Again, that's edgecom.ai/newsletter. As well, again, for those in Ontario participating in the ICI program, considering participating in the ICI program, or maybe you don't know what the ICI program is, we are doing a webinar January 31st at 2 p.m. in the new year that will discuss what the ICI program is, what it's going to look like this coming year. Yep, the webinar sign up QR code right here. You can scan it with your phone, sign up easily. And again, we're going to talk about what the ICI program looks like this coming year, the potential savings, the potential courses of actions, etc. And again, if you'd like any more detail on our devices here or the data track software, you can book a meeting directly with me. I believe a QR code will pop up somewhere here, one of these corners as well. So you can book a demo directly. Do I need a technician to install the devices? So no, as mentioned, it's completely plug and play. It's if you need a technician to put one wire here and one wire here, maybe that's in your best interest, but it's absolutely not required. It's safe and it's easy. Again, our other device, the CT meter, it's as simple as unclipping it, going around the wire, and clipping it back on. Within 15 minutes, this is now going to be flowing data. So a technician is absolutely not required. How many devices can the hub handle? So each one of these hubs can support up to 500 devices. So that could be 500 pulse counters, 500 CT meters, or again, 500 of whatever your pre-existing converted meters are. Or you could do a 100, 100, 300, however you'd like. It's 500 nodes basically. So each metering point, it counts as one towards that total 500. What if I have cement walls? Will the hub work? So it is recommended that you put the hub as high as possible as you can, because this is the only device that does require a hard connection. It does plug into the wall. That is how it receives its power. So it's recommended that the higher up you can install it, the better. However, communicating between cement walls for the downstream devices, it can traverse that well. So as I mentioned, downstream, it uses a LoRa technology, long range radio frequency, which deals with debris and interruptions well. So it can go through cement, it can go through floors. We did a test at the very start of producing these devices. And in one of our test runs, we were able to put the hub on the 11th floor of a condo building, and we were able to connect to a device in the basement. So there's absolutely no issues with hub connectivity. Again, it supports up to 1 kilometer in radius. So it's nothing, no concerns. So again, if there's no further questions, I will remind you, webinar sign up, QR code right here. Still getting used to the pointing, my apologies. Webinar right here, scan it, enter your email. It will be on the Ontario peaks to lower your GA costs for the 2024-2025 season. Again, that is January 31st at 2 p.m. Eastern. sign up right here. And again, if you want frequent updates from Edgecom Energy and the industry in itself, again, whether that's the evolution of AI in industrial manufacturing in general, or policy changes that may or may not affect your business, that's edgecom.ai/newsletter. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you guys for showing up, listening in, tuning in. And before I exit, again, one last time, if you'd like to book a demo to learn more, the QR code is right here. I'll leave that on screen for a minute. At any point, I'm happy to go over any extra questions. Maybe you come up with a question later. I'm happy to answer them at any time. Otherwise, again, I'd like to thank you guys for coming out and tuning in. Till next time.